Hello, hola, turubem, konnichiwa. What it do? Thank you for checking out another episode of the J Boy Sports Podcast. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the man, Steve Kerr, the four-time championship winning coach. I'm going to be honest, sometimes I get annoyed with Kerr because I feel like his system doesn't respect big men. And that bothers me. I have to be 100% honest. It bothers me. I feel like Steph is just running around like a wild hedgehog with no tails or knuckles, just running, and he just doesn't have anybody there to score a basket easily under the rim. Now they got Jimmy Butler, right? So Jimmy Butler, at first I was skeptical. I was like, I don't know what this really does. I feel like they need size. I've always felt like they need size. The Lakers, when they had Anthony Davis, were just beating them down with size. Just they were so much bigger and stronger. But I do think this Jimmy Butler thing is changing a little bit of the team. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, because Jimmy scores near the rim. He does a lot of rim stuff. He's not a big man, but his game is very much mid-range, get to the rim, draw fouls. These are things that the Warriors have not been doing. There's no easy buckets. There's no fouls because Steph is a jump shooter. And I always feel like even when they lost in 2016, the jump shooting, and they had Festus Ezeli got hurt, Bogut got hurt, Draymond was out one game, Harrison Barnes wasn't playing like a big man at all. Kyrie Irving was guarding him. There's like a 7-inch height difference. So they're all the jump shooting, in my opinion, has been an issue. No emphasis on big people, but we'll talk about that in another video. What we're here to talk about today is Steve Kerr getting annoyed with the lack of the foul calls. Now, they recently played the Hornets, and in that game, LaMelo traveled, and Steve Kerr waited a little bit. You could see that his fuse was blown, but he tried to be patient. And then he turned into Draymond Green Jr. and lost it after they called a foul for LaMelo. And he just lost it. And they asked him after the game, they said, what happened? And it seems like Steve Kerr is tired of the rules being broken. And to that, I have to say, amen, brother. Me too. So let's listen to what Steve Kerr had to say, and then we'll talk about it and see, is he losing his marbles, or is this man on to something?
You get a technical for you're just upset about a non-travel call.
I mean, I don't understand why we're not teaching our officials to call travel in this league. They do a great job. They work their tails off. They communicate well. But I see 5-6 travels a game that aren't called. We had 4 ourselves in Philadelphia. None of them were called. It's a problem when there's like 100 fans in the stands and every coach on the sidelines. When I'm watching film, and it's like everybody's doing that. So everyone's seeing it. So we're clearly not teaching as a league our officials to look at the feet. And I've made that clear to the league. Maybe I'll hear back from them after these comments, but for the good of the game, the entire game is based on footwork. And for the good of the game, we need to enforce traveling violations, and we're not doing it. And I don't understand why.
It looked like you were pointing at the fans. Is that because people on the stand?
Yeah, because the guy across the way is going like that, and like I said, I see it every time I watch tape. There's 3 or 4 plays a game where the whole bench and everyone sees it. So I just think we can do a better job. And like I said, it's about the way we're teaching them. It's not. These guys are awesome. They got brutal jobs and they got a million things to watch, but footwork is the entire basis of the game, and we need to call traveling. It's going to be a much better game if we clean it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
So there you have it, Steve Kerr speaking about the traveling, and I got to say, I absolutely agree with this man. And I also have to give him credit on this interview because the way he handled it, it was perfect. he congratulated the refs, but also said they need to do a better job of calling fouls. But he didn't put it all on them. He put it on the office. So if you're trying to be a politician of some sort, and this isn't the worst form of it, if you're trying to just be politically correct in a way that I don't think is that bad in this situation. I usually dislike politically correct people because they tend to be either big time liars or almost liars most of the time. But he did a good job here. He got his point across without having to be overly aggressive or upset like he was on the court. And I perfectly understood his message. And his message is that, you know, we need to call these travels. And I agree. I be watching basketball games and they just don't call them. And people sit there and, oh, look at that crossover. Look at that in and out move. Look at this. Look at that. And I did a video that I can link to this about Allen Iverson, where the same concept. If you just let Allen Iverson do, you might as well let him do his crossover. How much more dangerous would Allen Iverson have been in this era when you could just do whatever you want out there? And Steve Kerr's right. They missed a call on LaMelo, but I don't think they missed it. I just think they didn't call it. Everybody saw it. Like Steve Kerr said, everybody saw it. And then they do an out of bounds play, get the ball back to LaMelo, and then he gets a foul called. So now the ball should have been the Warriors. But instead, they basically, what's the word I want to use here? They incentivize, that bad behavior of, oh, you could just travel and then you'll get the ball back, and then now you'll get free throws. You're sending the wrong message. And I agree with Steve Kerr. They need to tighten the game back up. People are doing too much with the ball. And then some people say, oh, well, the players in the past just didn't use the rules right. No, they literally, if it didn't look right, they would just whistle it. They just whistle it. And if they really didn't like it because you're crossing Michael Jordan, they'd say that your crossover is illegal. And they just start calling it on you. So I agree with Steve Kerr in this video. They need to crack down on all these travels and these carries, and I hate it. I personally hate it. I like to play defense. I like to be able to shut people down. But if you talk to most people that are really good defenders, I considered myself a really good defender, at least at one point. I have not actually played defense like that in a minute, to be honest. On somebody that's really good, I haven't done it in a while. But I always consider myself a pretty good defender. I could guard people bigger than me, smaller than me, because I cared. And one of the strategies that I used to use is I used to bank on people's habits and also what move they just used, like what they could do out of that, right? So if you do a regular crossover, I usually had a way that I defended that. And depending on who you are, I had a way of how I defended your crossover. But what happens is when you can manipulate the game and start doing things that are really illegal, all the travels and the carries, people start making up moves that I can't anticipate. You understand what I'm saying? If you're a defender, if you're really about that life, like you really want to stop people, you have to have in your mind an idea of what they can and can't do. If you can just make up stuff on the fly that's illegal, it's dang near impossible to guard an elite offensive player. I used to play against this guy that he was nice, don't get me wrong, and he had handle, but every third dribble he carried. So it looked like he wasn't, but then if you really paid attention to it, I was trying to figure out, like, why is he catching me with this crossover? I know it's coming. I see it coming. What is the difference? Why am I falling for this? I'm better than that. And I realized every third dribble, he was like carrying it. So he was getting that little extra boost that allowed him to look like he was doing a crossover, but he was really carrying it to go either he was holding it that extra little millisecond that allowed I made it hard for me to figure out which way he was going. Because if he was doing a normal crossover that was legal, you can only go one way out of that. But when people start holding it, then they can do a hesitation and dang near put their hand not quite under the ball, but close to it, but it's still holding it, like palming it in their wrist. And then when you try to reach, they just snatch it in a different way. But really, it's not legal. Okay, so But that's the type of stuff that Steve Kerr's talking about. LaMelo did it a little bit differently. He did like some type of weird jump thing and jump stop and then pivoted backwards or some stuff if you were watching it. But I agree. And I know that was a rant, but as a defender, it actually irritates me to see people taking advantage of the rules, because you can usually only do a few things and your creativity can grow out of that. But when you allow people to cheat the game and travel and carry, then it becomes impossible. And that's why defense, part of the reason defense is not what it used to be, because can you even force people to travel? Will they call it? If you force them into a carry, will they call it? You have to reward the defender for their sacrifice. Not just always rewarding the offensive player for coming up with some nonsense and you decide to swallow the whistle. So Steve Kerr, you get an A+ from me. Thank you for listening to this episode of the J-Boys Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. Steve Kerr, please keep shouting that out, because I'm going to say the same thing. Call the travel. Y'all take care, man. Much love.
Can tell that somehow